The key to improving your mile times, writes America's top miler Steve Scott, is building greater overall strength. A stronger runner, he believes, is a better runner. Through the years, the mile, or its metric equivalent, has always been the glamour event of track and field. Of course, I may be prejudiced in its favor, but the mile is the centerpiece of just about any track meet. Track fans come out specifically to see the mile because it's usually a thrilling race with the most well-known runners. Today, everyone has heard of Steve Ovett, John Walker, and Sebastian Coe, and when I think of track and field history, the names that immediately come to mind Bannister, Elliott, Snell and Ryan were all great milers. These runners were international heroes because they dominated the most perfect race in track. They were able to find the precise combination of strength and speed, which resulted in unheard-of times. Every runner can relate to the mile. It's the yardstick by which all distance runners measure themselves. Every distance runner, from the most casual jogger to the world-class performer, knows approximately the time in which he can run a mile. The pace of all training runs is determined by running at such and such a pace per mile. Although great importance is attached to being able to run a respectable mile time, not enough distance runners work at improving their personal bests for the mile. You're probably asking yourself, what does this mean for me? Plenty. Even if you don't have any plans to run a mile in competition, training to run a faster mile will directly translate into improved times at every distance. Think about it for a minute. Let's say you can comfortably run 10 kilometers in about 40 minutes, and the fastest mile you can run is 5:45. To cut 15 to 20 seconds off your mile time, you'll have to become a stronger, more efficient runner. If you can accomplish that, your 10-kilometer time can't help but improve. If you can run a 5:30 mile, imagine how much easier a 6:30 pace will feel. Obviously, you will have to run faster if you hope to improve your mile time, but the question I get asked all the time is, how? I believe the real key to running a faster mile isn't as much concentrating on trying to run faster as it is building greater overall strength. Naturally, if you're stronger you will develop greater speed. My coach, Len Miller, has always believed that a stronger runner is a better runner. To prove his point, all you have to do is look at the great milers of today and you'll notice that not too many of them are from the lanky Jim Beattie mold of several years ago. Ovett, Walker and myself are as strong in our upper bodies as we are in our legs. Maybe stronger. Our strength is our strength. Even some of the top road runners, such as Herb Lindsey and Randy Thomas, have exceptional upper body strength. The idea is to be able to use that strength to maintain your speed over any distance. For me, building strength for the mile is a combination of weight training, resistance running, hills, over-distance work and high-quality interval training. After a low-key month following the hectic summer European season, I begin building in October toward the next European season. It takes me 4 or 5 months of intense strength work to get ready, and I know if anything disrupts it at all, I won't be worth much come summer. On the other hand, last fall I ran a personal best of 28:30 for 10 kilometers. That indicates to me that I'm stronger than ever before, and this summer I know I'll be a better miler for it. Since we're talking strength, perhaps one should define what I mean by it. The idea isn't to become a bodybuilder or even to build your skinny frame into something more substantial. For runners, strength training means delaying the lactic acid block that starts in your shoulders and spreads like the plague throughout the rest of your body when you're pushing too hard. To run a breakthrough mile, you'll have to push yourself, and there will be pain. But through proper training and developing the necessary strength, you can postpone that pain until maybe the last 100 or 200 meters, which you can run through, instead of dying with 400 or 500 meters to go, which is too much to run through. The best advice I can offer anyone who wants to run a faster mile is to begin a weight training program right away. Join a health club or fitness center that has a Nautilus program, universal gym or free weights. Find a facility that can offer some instruction in the use of the system so you can get the maximum training effect. There is a mini controversy over what is better for runners: Nautilus and universal systems versus free weights. From my standpoint, free weights are better because they involve not only lifting the weight, but also balancing it properly. I like this added factor that you don't get with weight machines. However, I've been using free weights for 7 years and have learned weightlifting techniques so well that I'm very at ease with them. It probably doesn't matter which system you use as long as you begin a program and are consistent with it. Consistency is extremely important. I advise working with weights at least twice a week, but no more than 3 times. If you use weights more often, there is an undesirable tendency to bulk up. Scheduling your weight training session properly is critical. Never attempt a weight workout after running a hard interval session. You're likely to be too wiped out to get any real benefit from the weights. I like to lift weights on my easy days. I want to be able to concentrate on what I'm doing and put forth a solid effort so that I achieve maximum benefits. If you're just going through the motions, you won't get anything out of it. Another thing I do when I'm lifting is keep moving from drill to drill. I'm attempting to get some degree of aerobic benefit from the weights as well. I do 3 repetitions of each drill, and I do all 3 reps before moving on. I never take a full recovery, either, so I'm getting the cardiovascular stress. As far as the actual weights go, most runners emphasize high repetitions with relatively low weights. When I first started weightlifting as a freshman at the University of California, Irvine, I knew I could bench press 200 pounds, so I cut it in half and did reps of 100 pounds. Start with something easy and build gradually. It can be discouraging to strain with heavier weights that you can barely budge. One of the side benefits of working with weights is the confidence factor you can derive. Once you start working with weights and see yourself getting stronger, you'll feel a lot stronger, too. This reinforces everything you're doing and should feed your running confidence. The opposite also happens. When I'm in Europe for the summer and lay off weights, I tend to feel weaker and flabbier. These are the drills I try to do at least twice a week. Quarter squats. Placing a reasonable amount of weight on the bar, place the bar on your shoulders and do a quarter squat. You don't want to go too far down because the stress is a little too great for your knees and tendons. Keep your back straight and explode upward. Leg extensions. This drill must be done on a universal or Nautilus machine. You're merely pushing weights with your legs. It's designed to build your quadriceps, which are your prime lifting muscles. Hamstring curls. Lying flat on your stomach, you lift a certain amount of weight with your legs. It's great for building the hamstrings and calves. With this exercise, make certain you aren't lifting too much weight because you can tear a muscle quite easily. Toe raisers. This is similar to the quarter squat because you use a weighted bar placed on your shoulders. Instead of going down, you rise up on your toes. Bench press. This is one of my favorites. Lying on your back on a bench, you press the weight overhead. Make sure you lift the weight straight up so your shoulders get the full extension. Clean and press. If there is one free weight exercise to do, this is it. It's an overall weightlifting drill that involves some technique. The weighted bar is on the ground and you clean lift it up to your shoulders. Once you've got the weight balanced, you press it overhead. Dumbbell swings. This is an important drill for a miler because you simulate the arm movements of a race with 10-pound dumbbells. Milers need to get a certain amount of lift from their arms and this exercise develops that motion. The 3 other prime ingredients in my strength building programs, hill training, over distance and intervals, all have a place in any distance runner's training cycle. Once again, I try to emphasize these 3 things during my fall build-up period. All 3 give me the explosive strength I'll need later on during the competitive year. Hill training and over distance work go hand in hand during the fall. My training partners, Ray Wixell and Pete Heeson, and I will go on 18-mile runs at a fairly quick tempo. Now that may not sound like a long run for a marathoner, but it's plenty for a miler. In the middle of our long run comes South Mountain Park in Phoenix. South Mountain is the longest, steepest hill I've ever run in my life, and believe me, it's a real gutbuster. We don't enjoy climbing it too much, but merely being able to run all the way to the top proves to us that we are getting stronger. During the strength phase of my training, proper rest is very important so that I can sustain the heavy workload. Naturally, rest is a relative term, but for me a rest day means I do my 2 daily runs at what my coach calls a social tempo. That is, I get my mileage in at a much slower than race tempo. I should be able to carry on a conversation with my training partners during these recovery runs. They're not supposed to be easy runs, but they're also not supposed to be extremely tough. The way my fall training pattern works is that I have 2 rest days between every hard day. I need it, too, because my hard days are so arduous that I can barely stand after some of them. Hard days revolve around my afternoon interval sessions on the track. I'm certain that 90% of all recreational runners have never done an interval workout in their running lives. Most of them just do distance training. If you want to improve your time for the mile, distance runs aren't enough. You must train your body and mind to run fast if you want to run fast. That may sound like an oversimplification, but it really isn't. You must accustom your body to proper pacing and also understand what it takes to run a faster pace than you're used to. One thing I've noticed over the years is that a lot of runners dread their interval sessions and, as a result, don't get all the benefits they should from them. You must bring a positive attitude to the track when you're running intervals or you'll defeat their entire purpose. I can't say I look forward to my interval sessions, but I do relish the challenge of completing a workout and reaping rewards from it. I know the harder I work, the better I'll become. Consistency is the key to good interval training. To improve those mile times, you'll have to run at least 1 and possibly 2 interval workouts a week. It isn't necessary to run interval workouts on a track, but it's safer and the conditions are more controlled and exact. You also don't have to worry about your foot placement or traffic. Since I'm not a coach, I won't offer you any specific workouts that are guaranteed to improve your mile times. First, there is no magical mile workout. Just because you want to run a faster mile doesn't mean there is any one workout that is more beneficial than another. You certainly don't want to duplicate what I or any other world-class milers do just because we're successful. What I do would probably kill any desire you have to run another interval workout. I do my own thing and it works for me. I don't even care what a Seb Coe or Steve Ovett does because, other than our event, we have nothing in common. Another reason I won't give you any specific workouts is that I don't think it really matters what you do. There is no way I can tell you that running 10 by 400 is any better than 10 by 330. It just doesn't make a bit of difference. I'm sure longer intervals are strength builders while the shorter stuff is more speed-oriented, but the critical factor in developing mile speed is the pace at which you run the intervals. University of Oregon coach Bill Dellinger, in his story in the March issue of RW, explained his system of determining interval pace. My formula is a little simpler. Decide what your time goal is for the mile and train to run at that pace. For instance, if you want to run a 4-minute mile, run your intervals at a 60-second per quarter pace. If the time goal is to run a 5-minute mile, train at a 75-second per quarter pace. If you can't maintain that pace in your workouts, your goal is unrealistic and you'd better lower it. My interval training has been developed around sets of at least 2 repetitions. In other words, I'll do a certain amount of 330s, or whatever, with a 200 or 400 meter recovery jog between each interval. After I complete a set, I'll walk about 400 meters and get a full recovery before moving on to the next set. This is a little different from the way some runners do it, but I want a full recovery between sets so I can maintain the highest quality workout physically possible. Another factor that I believe is very important in interval training is to practice positive splits. This means that the second half of each repetition should be faster than the first. If you're running a 70-second quarter, the first half should be around 40 seconds and you should close in 30. Once you have started training to run a faster mile, you should begin trying to visualize yourself running the mile in your predetermined time range. This is called your comfort zone. If you want to run a 4-minute mile, you must see yourself as a 4-minute miler and not as someone whose best time is 4:15. You have to see yourself actually running a 4-minute mile in order to do it. I can think of a half-dozen examples of milers who are physically capable of running a sub-4 mile and have done the training, but can't do it because they believe in this 4-minute barrier and can't see themselves breaking it. They'll never do it, either, until they can picture themselves breaking the tape and seeing the clock read 3:59 or better. Even if you appear ready to run faster than your goal, you must make a psychological adjustment or you won't run faster. You must consciously work at changing your gut-level expectations, your own image and your confidence level if you want to run appreciably faster. If you can't see yourself running faster, you won't. Once you have incorporated all these strength-building components into your overall program, try running some shorter races than you normally run. Get out of the 10K blues. That gets pretty boring and doesn't do much to test your new level of racing fitness. Mix up your racing schedule with some 2-milers or even shorter events. Maybe you'll even be confident enough to run a mile in an all-comers meet. And don't get discouraged if you don't meet your time goal the first time out. I don't think runners should think in terms of 10 or 15-second improvements as much as merely improving. Don't limit yourself by establishing a set time. Merely think more in terms of any personal best and be satisfied with any improvement. You also don't want to set your goals unrealistically high. Not achieving those goals can be a negative factor. You should be looking for consistent improvement. Remember this, if you want to run a faster mile, you will.